Ladies and gentlemen, fight fans all around the world, let's talk some boxing. So before you're watching Carl Frampton versus Chris Avalos. And I want to show you something very quickly. So here you see Carl Frampton is fighting Chris Avalos. You notice his hand, his lead hand is probing, also occupying Chris Avalos as much as is possible. And then he strikes with the straight right, came off with a left hook. And this is Guillermo Rigondeaux versus Hisashi Amagasa. Notice Carl Frampton, southpaw, is occupying Hisashi Amagasa with his right hand. And is lining up to strike with the straight left. Guillermo Rigondeaux is also known as El Jackal, or the Jackal in Spanish. Carl Frampton is known as the Jackal in English. Why am I making this video? Well, I said I was going to do a follow-up video on Guillermo Rigondeaux anyway, because I want to bring you guys to the attention that once these so-called champions do not challenge him and they try to make him irrelevant, they try to push him out of boxing, I will keep on making videos. Carl Frampton had a pretty good win against Chris Avalos. Pretty good win. And what was amazing about his win was that after he had a 5-round TKO against Chris Avalos, who's a naturally bigger guy, just as how Guillermo Rigondeaux had his TKO against Amagasa, who was an absolutely natural bigger guy, had a longer reach, 6 feet tall, a huge super bantamweight, and very strong at that. And of course, Guillermo really messed up his face at the end of that fight. Even so, my point is that at the end of this fight here, Carl Frampton versus Chris Avalos, his manager said something that I just believe is unforgivable. His manager said Carl Frampton is the best super bantamweight in the division. Then he went on to say he's better than Guillermo Rigondeaux. This is the same manager that said they have no interest in fighting Guillermo Rigondeaux. Now, why this is unforgivable and blasphemous is for a number of reasons. But let's go into the most obvious ones. The first one is Guillermo Rigondeaux is right there. So if you're saying that your fighter is better than him, what better way to do it than to fight him? And not to say that they're not interested in him and he doesn't bring the money, but fight him to prove that you are the best. The second reason why that is blasphemy is because Guillermo Rigondeaux is the only super bantamweight who has 2 world titles. He has the WBO and the WBA because he unified with Nonito Donaire, who used to be the devastating super bantamweight in that division. So he is the super champion of super bantamweight. So he is undisputably the best super bantamweight out there. And that does not change because Carl Frampton beats Chris Avalos. For crying out loud, if Chris Avalos went up against Guillermo Rigondeaux, we are more than likely expect him to get knocked out in 2 rounds. Okay? So Carl Frampton managed to do it in 5. Great. Kudos to him. Now the other reason why this is pure blasphemy is because his manager, once again, does not acknowledge that Carl Frampton's style came after Guillermo Rigondeaux's style. What I'm saying, Guillermo Rigondeaux has that particular style that Carl Frampton has, and had the name the Jackal before Carl Frampton had the name the Jackal. It's clear to me that Guillermo Rigondeaux has been around boxing a lot longer than Carl Frampton has. Carl Frampton has now risen to fame, and Guillermo Rigondeaux has become two-time world champion in that space of time. Okay? So that's another reason why it's blasphemy. And then the final reason is that they don't want to acknowledge the greatness of Guillermo Rigondeaux, and they don't want to honor the man for what they have learned off of him. Obviously, Carl Frampton is just an orthodox version, and I must say a less refined orthodox and precise orthodox version of Guillermo Rigondeaux's style. Okay? So this is the three reasons why this is just pure blasphemy. Pure blasphemy. And for that reason alone, where they want to take from Guillermo what he has earned in the division and put it as their own, as they've been doing all along, I have to say, one, Carl Frampton's a fraud. He's a fraud. Because he's been stealing the name, the ideas, and the style of Guillermo Rigondeaux. That can't be coincidence. And now they want to steal his title as super champion in the division and the best in the division. I find that high blasphemy. And I call Carl Frampton and his team and his management coons. They're trying to live off of Guillermo Rigondeaux but not give him the credit where he deserves. And the credit he deserves is by facing him in the ring and fighting him. Leo Santa Cruz mentions Guillermo Rigondeaux's name, says he's not afraid. Talk is cheap, man. Back it up with action. Fight the guy. Now I hear Abner Maris saying he doesn't have a problem fighting Guillermo Rigondeaux. Well, if you don't have a problem, fight the guy. Scott Quigg straight up said he's not interested in fighting Guillermo Rigondeaux, so he's a coon too. Until all of those champions step up and fight this guy in the ring, they're all coons, in my opinion. They're jokers. And by trying to make him irrelevant for some reason, it's not going to work. And the longer you guys delay is the better he's going to be, because he's learning his craft even more as he continues. He's an old guy, but he's got a pretty young buddy. And an old guy with a young buddy is a dangerous dude. And plus he got skills. So that's all I got to say about that.